Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having me on this call. For starters, apologies, the sun is shining in my eye. It's a rare thing. I'm actually based in Glasgow, so I wasn't really expecting the sun to shine today. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. And yeah, in illustrious company as well. I think everyone who's spoken before me has kind of set things up really well for what I'm going to talk about. John talking about early prevention and the importance of um, taking action early for your health is something that Movember is really big on. And then obviously Nick talking very openly and honestly about everything he's gone through. Really, really impactful, a tough act to follow. Yeah, thanks so much, Nick, for sharing your story as well, because we know how difficult it is to open up about the difficulties you've had, but what you say about when you finally were able to open up to your family and get help, that's when things really started to sort of turn around for you. So yeah, thank you so much. That kind of really hits home for me. And yeah, Belinda, I mean, obviously, men's health is what we're talking about today, but we really believe that a healthier men can lead to a healthier society as well. And women play a huge part in the men's health movement and Movember as well, which I'll talk about a little bit as well. Yeah, what I'm going to talk about today is Movember, what we do and why we do it, providing some examples of the work we do. But also there's some of the actions we want people to take in terms of looking after their own health and looking out for others as well. So hopefully there'll be some practical advice for you as well, which you can take away and sort of apply to your sort of day-to-day work, day-to-day conversations. And yeah, also a big shout out to everyone who's fundraising and supporting Movember this year. It's good to see some familiar names on the call as well. Nick in Bedfordshire and yeah, Pete, a bit of a Movember legend. Great to see you here too. So yeah, now that the slides are up, just to introduce what Movember is. We're international men's health movement. Came from humble beginnings, two mates in a bar in Melbourne, having a beer and talking about things that had gone out of fashion. And one of those things was the mustache. No one they knew had a mustache at that time back in 2003, so they challenged each other to bring it back, and they did. They got 30 of their mates to do it, and they had a party at the end of November for one of their birthdays and took some pictures, and that was it. It was just a bit of fun. It wasn't for charity or anything else. But the following year, they decided that they needed an excuse to do it, so they started raising funds for prostate cancer because they came upon it and realized it was something that no one really was talking about or knew about. So they thought, well, it's the biggest male specific cancer. Let's do something about it. So they started raising funds for prostate cancer, and since then it's spread around the world. We've got campaigns in 20 countries, and we've had over 6 million people sign up and fundraise for us in the last 20 years as well, which is huge. And we're year round. We're not just the month of November. We're much more than this horrendous facial hair that I've got that I'm sporting halfway through the month. We're all really about impact as well. So we've funded 1,300 men's health projects, and we're just getting started. There's still a long way to go, and we've sort of developed this strategy going forward. This is how we want to make an impact on men's health and change the way guys talk about the health, take action, but also how health systems and society approaches men as well. We really want to make a huge change in the world. So those 5 goals: lift the profile of men's health, strengthen men's health literacy, because we know that men aren't equipped with the tools when they're young to deal with health issues or talk about them. Promote gender responsive healthcare for men. So when people are formulating policy, we want men, masculinity, gender to be taken into account to make sure that men access these programs as well. Improve young men's mental health. So early intervention is key, and I'll talk a little bit about that down the road and how prevalent mental health issues are in young men. And then improve prostate cancer mortality and quality of life. So yeah, simply trying to stop men dying too young from prostate cancer, but also looking at the quality of life for men who survive the disease. So as I've already kind of mentioned, you know, we've got 3 cause areas that we focus on, which we believe can sort of change the dial in stopping men dying too young. Those are prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's mental health. And these are the kind of headline stats that we look at, that 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer at some point in their lifetime. Testicular cancer is the most common cancer in young men, and 1 man dies by suicide every minute globally. First off, I just want to talk about cancer and start off with prostate cancer, in fact. So it's the second most common cancer in men globally. John sort of showed that table of the causes of loss of years of life for men, and prostate cancer was quite high up there. I think there's quite a lot of stigma around talking about prostate cancer, and you know, getting that PSA test, and we really want to break that down and get guys talking openly about it. And yeah, for us, there's a big sort of focus on knowledge and education. So, you know, knowledge is power, early detection is key. And the reason for that is because when prostate cancer is caught early, the survival rate is really good. It's up around 98% beyond 5 years. But that drops right off to 26% once it's spread beyond the prostate itself. So yeah, catching the disease early on is so important. And there's a few things we need to do to try and change that. It's a really sort of complicated situation with prostate cancer. We were talking about the PSA tests earlier. Unfortunately, it's not a particularly accurate test. It's maybe good as a first indicator that something might be wrong, but it doesn't tell you, you know, if you do definitely have prostate cancer or the severity of the disease. A lot more investigations needed beyond that. We certainly don't discourage people from having the tests, but the results have to be taken with a pinch of salt, because there is still a lot of work to be done beyond that in terms of looking into it. So you know, I'll talk about that in a second, what we're doing to sort of improve the situation. But certainly knowing the risk factors is a huge thing, and taking ownership of your own health is key in this. So knowing that prostate cancer predominantly affects older men who are 50 or over. Knowing that if you're Black or have African ancestry, that your prostate cancer risks are much higher, and it's a good idea to get tested earlier than 50 at 45, and get your PSA level and have that as a benchmark. And also having a family history of prostate cancer is a huge factor as well. Almost doubles your chances of having the disease yourself. So knowing if your grandfather or father had it, and having, you know, with older generations, it's difficult sometimes to talk about health issues and these things because they haven't been brought up to do so. But if you do know these things, it does allow you to sort of take action earlier. And yeah, as you say, early detection is really fundamental to survival from the disease. So what are we doing about the situation? We're investing in 5 key areas. So we do invest in biomedical research, a lot into sort of better tests, so that hopefully one day we have something that's more accurate than the PSA. You know, maybe even have a prostate cancer screening program, because there is no national program at the moment. The PSA test is something that you generally would have to request and speak to your doctor about. So, you know, we want to get to a place where every man can have a quick and accurate test for prostate cancer, and have tailored treatment to the type of disease they have. We invest in clinical quality, health services, care, and education. One of the education tools that I would encourage everyone to check out is our True North website, which is yeah, an innovative and information-rich website, as it says there, which provides lots of information on for men with prostate cancer on how to manage symptoms of the disease, but also symptoms of the treatments. You know, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, having your prostate removed are all quite you know, obviously really severely impact quality of life. Having your prostate removed, a prostatectomy, can cause erectile dysfunction and incontinence, and you know, guys might have to live with these side effects for years and years and years. So we want to make sure that we're not just talking about cures, which, yes, is great. We do want to invest in cures for the disease, and we've funded some great breakthroughs like olaparib, a life-extending prostate cancer drug for guys with the advanced disease. But we're also talking about quality of life and care for men beyond diagnosis and treatment, even if that treatment is successful, because they will still have to deal with consequences for the rest of their life. So yeah, I would we'll share the links afterwards. But yeah, True North is a great resource to have, free to everyone, and it's backed up by our global research and our global cancer network. We work with cancer charities around the world. We've got global registries with over 130,000 men on them who've had prostate cancer. So we're building up like a huge evidence base around the best course of treatments for men, the best ways to manage their signs and symptoms, and we use that knowledge to advocate for men in the countries in which we operate, so that services are tailored to them and are meeting their needs, because we think that men are quite often ignored in healthcare systems, and their voice isn't heard in things like prostate cancer. That's a whirlwind tour of our work in prostate cancer, but check out Movember.com if you want to know more, or contact Prostate Cancer UK, who we work with very closely. They have a helpline as well, which you can where you can reach out and get speak to a qualified nurse. So it's a fantastic resource to have, and one we've helped fund in the past as well. So testicular cancer, it's the #1 cancer in young men. That's got a good survival rate, thankfully. Like prostate cancer, it's up in the 98% survival rate. But unlike prostate cancer, even when it's spread, it's still quite treatable. It reacts very well to chemotherapy. However, the treatment can lead to long-term side effects that impact quality of life. So again, as with prostate cancer, we're not just talking about cures and investing in that. We're also talking about care and quality of life beyond the disease. The big thing we do again is talking about early detection and empowering men to know what to do. So we have this annual campaign in April, Know Thy Nuts, which is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek campaign to get guys to know what's normal and check themselves once a month, and then take action when they've noticed that something has changed. So we do that with some fun imagery around your pear and your nuts, and it's kind of health by stealth. We know that 60% of guys in the sort of key age demographic don't know how to self-examine themselves. So we have to try and get through to them some way, and the way that we've done that is through having fun. The way that growing a moustache is a fun way to engage guys with the Movember campaign and the issues that we talk about. We've also got a website for testicular cancer called Nuts and Bolts, which has got loads of information on there, the self-check guide, stories from our community, and it's also got an opportunity to reach out to a guide as well. So young men who are going through the disease can speak to someone who's already been through it and answer some of the questions that they might have. They might not have been able to ask a doctor. The impacts on day-to-day life. It's obviously hugely stressful when you're diagnosed with cancer and having to live with the uncertainty that it might return, but also it's a very isolating experience, especially for young men, because very few people they know will be diagnosed as well. So Nuts and Bolts gives them an opportunity to speak to a real person about the issues that are facing them, someone who understands exactly what they've gone through. And then to move on to like the third and final cause area, mental health and suicide prevention. Obviously that statistic, losing a man every minute globally to suicide, is quite frightening. And 3 out of 4 suicides are men. So there's obviously quite a big gender skew in mortality rates from suicide, and that's something we want to tackle. And underlying all 3 of our cause areas is the information on the slide, really. Boys and men are socialized into dominant masculinity. They're taught to be strong, stoic, and rely on themselves and not rely on others. So when Belinda's talking about why don't guys talk, this is definitely one factor. that they're taught not to talk, basically, or show weakness in front of others. Especially in those crisis points, when you've hit rock bottom with, you've lost your job, your relationships broken down, perhaps these key sort of crisis moments. I mean, you experience them day to day in your workplace, directly or indirectly. How do you deal with them? And trying to deal with it alone is not always possible. So we really want to educate young guys that this isn't the best way to deal with your problems. It's really important to build connections with others and have someone you can speak to. And this diagram illustrates kind of the area that we operate in and where we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to we work in the bottom two tiers in informal community care, self-care, early intervention, education, and health promotion. So trying to break down stigmas, equipping guys with the tools to get help early on and take action themselves. And then in informal community care, we invest in a bunch of programs that are aimed at men to help them deal with mental health issues. And I'll speak about a couple of those in a moment. And yeah, we have sort of 6 sort of pillars underlying our mental health strategy, which I've sort of talked about before. But we're really trying to make a big difference to how society as a whole understands how to support men as well. It's really important that we're not just putting it all on men. And again, that's just the slides just underlying the things that we want to push guys, knowing what to do when they reach a crisis point, and staying socially connected, which is proven to be a big preventative factor in suicide. Having people you can speak to, and having that support network around you. And again, we have another website which anyone can access, Movember Conversations, which is a digital tool that teaches you how to start and guide a conversation with someone going through a rough time. So we found that when we were talking to guys and saying, you need to open up and speak about, the things that are affecting you, you reach out. Not only do they struggle to have the language to talk about their mental health, but they also said that quite a lot of people were shutting them down, weren't listening, or were unsure what to do when they did reach out. So we think it's really important that people are educated to listen and to know specifically how to speak to a man and meet a man's specific emotional needs, and understand the pressures that he's facing. So that's what Movember Conversations is all about. Providing there's practice conversations you can go through in preparation for a tough conversation with someone who's gone through a tough time. There's some practical tips on how to approach that conversation. There's articles on people going for specific situations as well. And yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone to check that out and go through this ALEC model: ask, listen, encourage, action, check in, which I've found really useful when speaking to someone going through a tough time. And yeah, it's just some really sort of practical advice about how to do it. And yeah, we find this is really, really popular and it's helped a lot of guys open up who wouldn't normally. Other campaigns we've sort of undertaken, we have like a Spot the Signs campaign which we ran, which has highlighted some of the symptoms of poor mental health, which we might not immediately recognize, but is a really useful kind of early intervention tool. So things like becoming irritable or aggressive, working compulsively, isolating themselves, more quiet than usual. We're noticing these changes in guys, but also highlighting key moments in their life where they might need extra support. Obvious ones like losing a job or having a relationship breakdown, but also becoming a father, which is meant to be the happiest time of your life, in quotation marks, but also an incredibly stressful time, financially, emotionally, lack of sleep, but also losing your normal way of life which you had before. You struggle to find time to connect with others. There's not as many opportunities to speak to friends and families perhaps, and so this Spot the Signs campaign has a great video as well, which I'll share a link with after as well, and it's just kind of getting people to think about the men in their lives. And definitely check out the Get Support page on Movember.com as well. We've compiled a bunch of helplines for addiction, bereavement. Yeah, there's a whole host of useful links in there, which I encourage you to look at and share. And just to round off with a couple of examples of things that we've invested in to help support men's mental health. There's Ahead of the Game, which is a sort of mental health education program that ties in with sport, aimed at boys aged between the 12 and 18. As I said at the start, early intervention is key with mental health, with around 75% of all mental health problems in adulthood having their onset before the age of 14. So obviously it's really critical that we reach boys early on with the tools to recognize poor mental health within themselves, within someone else, and what to do in those situations. And it's all about sort of supporting your teammate and knowing that your teammate's got your back. One way that we've rolled this out and have been able to have a huge reach is with the Rugby League World Cup. We partnered with Rugby League Cares to put 8,000 young men through this program, but also their parents and coaches as well are given the education on men's mental health, and it's to try and build communities that really understand and are compassionate about poor mental health and talking about it openly. Understand that in police services it can be really difficult to talk openly about these things, and you will get shut down. But yeah, we certainly believe that being open and honest about these issues is the only way to actually tackle them. We've also invested in veterans and first responders like yourselves. So I don't need to tell you that your community experiences higher rates of poor mental health and suicide compared to the general population, because they're the things that you go through on a daily basis. And we've funded programs across the world, but in the UK, we've funded Resleeps is just one example of the programs that we've invested in with the University of Leicester. I always have to write down the name of this. It's Resilient Senior Leaders Program, which is aimed at police superintendents who we know are very isolated at times in the workplace and maybe find it more difficult to access support and care than their colleagues, because my understanding being that they're often meant to be that point of contact and strength for their colleagues. So that's testing and scaling that, and hopefully one day that'll be rolled out across more forces across the country. And last but not least, I just wanted to mention our Mo Sisters, as we call them, the women who in our lives who support Movember, who are crucial and fundamental to the campaign. Movember took a lot of inspiration from women's health movements early on, particularly breast cancer, because they were talking openly and honestly about an issue that perhaps had been taboo at one time, but they wanted to have the same impact on prostate cancer and men's mental health. So women have been an inspiration for Movember from the very start, and the way that women can support Movember and men's health is obviously by sharing the things we've been talking about today, being part of the team and being there to talk to men. Certainly some guys find it easier to talk with women than they do with men, perhaps. Organizing events and being a motivator for your team is a huge part of it. So yeah, I think we've got some great examples from our community where women have really sort of changed the dial and been sort of leaders for men's health within their communities. There's just 3 of them there that we'll share with after, but won't read through. But certainly, women are really fundamental to men's health. The amount of guys that we speak to who say, I wouldn't have done anything if my partner, girlfriend, wife, sister, mum hadn't told me to go to the doctor. God knows what would have happened. So it's everyone has their part to play in Movember and the men's health movement. But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we never want to lose what we've been about since the start. It's a stupid idea that was thought up in a pub. We always want Movember to be fun, but we always want it to be impactful too at the same time. So yeah, it's great to have some of you involved, and thanks very much for your time and attention. So yeah, we'll hopefully get to some questions at the Q&A at the end. Thanks.